Welcome back to Stop Feeling Like Shit, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of real healing journeys using functional and integrative medicine. Today's episode is very close to my heart because I'm the case study. Yes, we're talking about all the things with hair loss, how it starts, what it actually means, what testing you really need to do, and what you can actually do about it. Joining me, Joe Matovich, back again, and missing Dr. Buzz. Don't worry, he's not here. He's out doing something with our kid. But anyways, if you've been staring at your shower drain wondering what the hell is happening, this one is for you. All right, Joe, tell us, because I'm telling you right now,
Yep.
this hair loss thing is crazy. And actually, now that I've been getting on TikTok more and more, I'm seeing all these people with dramatic hair loss, even younger people. I thought it was like such an older thing back in the day.
Right.
And now it's like, I've been going through my own hair loss. So tell us, like, what is hair loss, hair shed?
Right. So you can have hair loss or hair shedding from a lot of different things. And I'm going to use your case as an example where it was really multifactorial. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're okay with me using you as an example.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So other than like androgenic alopecia or your common things are like different iterations of lichen autoimmune disease that causes excessive, I think it's lichen planopilaris, which is like hair loss from permanent scarring of the scalp, and just some of those things which maybe is a little bit harder to do something about. Most people, when we're seeing hair loss in our office, it's autoimmune related dysfunction, it's thyroid related issues. Here's a big piece of yours was chronic stress and iron deficiency, these ill effects of different underlying metabolic processes that will cause hair shedding and loss because of changes in like the telogen or anagen phases of hair follicles and nutritional deficiencies and things like that. I mean, there is a lot of different things that can contribute to it. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it was back in 2022, I noticed that my hair started to shed more than normal.
Right.
Which back then I also had hair extensions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when she went to go move up my hair extensions, there was more shedding than normal.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of like bothered me. I was like, wait, what? And so I was like, okay. So I kind of like brushed it off, like not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time too, my career was, I was in real estate title insurance, and I ran a company that had 70 employees. We had 8 offices, and I was like the go-to, right? So I always put everything on my shoulders. I took everything very personal in that business. I loved our team. I loved our customers. I wanted everything to always be perfect. And so in 2022, Buzz and I got married.
Yep.
And I believe like towards the end of that year, that's when the hair really started to fall out in chunks.
Yep.
And I started to be like, okay, I know there's a problem now. And I don't know what it's from, but it's a problem. And you don't ever think like, oh, it's from stress.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't cross your mind.
Right.
You're just like over here with a pile of hair in your hand, and you don't even want to touch your hair. But my hair at that time, not only was it falling out in clumps, like I started to get, bald spots. And then also it's like brittle. Like I didn't want to touch my hair because I'm like, this shit might snap off.
Right.
So,
then how do you blow dry it or straighten it or
yeah, I
brush
didn't want
it
to touch
or do
it.
anything?
I didn't want to touch my hair at all. And that's when I started to go in panic mode because I'm like, I cannot, you start to lose your hair and people are like, oh, it's just your hair.
Right.
No, dude, it's an identity. Like, it's my identity. Like, everyone loves their hair.
Well, and I would say in a lot of fields, whether it's real estate, whether it's medicine, whether it's anything, like, as superficial as it may sound, like aesthetically, we care how we look and people perceive us based on how we aesthetically present ourselves.
Right.
Right. It just
Yeah.
is what it is.
And so I'm like going through this hair loss, falling out in chunks, shedding a lot. I didn't want to touch it. God bless my husband. He was like, babe, it looks normal. I'm like, and God bless him because he tried really hard. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
And then I would cry more because I'm like, dude, it's not normal. And I'm starting
Yeah.
to look like a boy. Like, I'm losing all my hair at the top of my head.
Yeah.
You couldn't really see the back part underneath, but all of this up here was like going fast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, I'm starting to get that receding hairline.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this ain't gonna work out for me. So that's when I was like, I gotta call the office. I gotta come into the office. Like, my hair's falling out. What are we doing? What can we do?
Yep.
All right. So next steps.
So again, like we talked about, your hair loss was super multifactorial, and there were similarities between your case and then even Kristen's case that we just talked about. Different issues, but root causality was very similar. The first thing is you just came out of an extraordinarily extended period of like constant stress,
Yeah.
right? Where, and again, like you were the driver of the business that you ran and owned and managed, and certainly for that, and I understand it too, because of obviously we work on Buckeye and all these businesses together. You're not just worried about generating a livelihood for yourself. You're wanting to perform well enough that you can sustain a business that feeds all your employees' families too,
Right.
Because you care about your people. And I know one of the first things we saw on you was your adrenal profile was horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And comparable in the fact that, and again, in a lot of things with this, it's kind of like you uncover one thing and it gives you a clue to the next thing that you have to uncover. And that's really how yours started, right? So, we looked at your adrenals both with an ASP with CAR, right? Just the salivary test, and we did Dutch testing, right?
Yep.
Now, there's benefits to each. Like the ASP with CAR is a salivary test. It's a great way to measure cortisol, and it gives you that first 30-minute chunk. What I like about the Dutch test that maybe we don't get as much is it also looks at cortisol metabolism, clearance, and storage. So it shows us back-end cortisone storage. It shows us cortisol free versus total produced. And what we saw on yours was cortisol production in totality throughout the course of the day was not good. But you stored a lot of cortisone still, and your cortisol, free cortisol, that is what your tissue was being exposed to, that was actually high, right? So if you remember when we looked at your diurnal pattern, you were high in the morning, high in the afternoon, high 2 hours later, crash early afternoon, then climb back up into the evening.
Right.
So you're just getting hammered with cortisol all
Makes
day.
sense because,
Right.
if you're in real estate,
Right.
I mean, it's like, honestly, it's go time.
Well, and when you look at real estate, it's a hard work, a lot of sales, no guaranteed job.
Right.
And when you work is when everybody else isn't working, and when they're working. And when somebody calls, you got to be available like that. And if you won't be available like that, they'll find somebody else who will.
Right. So I was pretty much on call 24/7.
Right. And that's what I've got a lot of my buddies too that will work in real estate, where it's like they think nothing to call me to ask me a question at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Oh, I just get, but so when we look at that, that's the first piece is, cortisol is going to kick hair follicles into their telogen or their resting phase quicker and shorten the anagen phase of hair follicle growth. So it's going to be dormant longer, and it's going to be dormant longer and grow for a shorter period of time, right? Couple with that, with all of the other ill effects, chronic elevations in nervous system excitatory chemicals like epinephrine and norepinephrine and glutamate, metabolic dysregulation, which turns into metabolic dysfunction and immune compromisation, and then exacerbation or worsening inflammatory response. Like that can cause a myriad of different issues, but specifically to the hair, the influence of chronically high levels of cortisol, that in and of itself will stunt follicular growth phase, right?
Yeah.
Then we had to say, okay, well, we're also seeing what's weird. How do you not make a lot of cortisol, but from a tissue level get exposed to way too much cortisol? There's something going on that's creating a hypometabolic state. You don't metabolize this well, which is weird because you're very fit. You'd assume like metabolism would be pristine, right?
Right.
So then it's, well, what could be causing this? Well, then that answer is going to be in your thyroid, or it's going to be in organic acids. So we pull a thyroid panel, right? Previously, in your pre-existing thyroid panels you had elsewhere, your TSH looked really good, right? It was like 1.5, which in normal medical, that's pretty darn good TSH. So at first glance, you'd be like, great TSH. But with the expanded metrics like your T4 and T3, those were low. So you had inadequate values of active thyroid hormone. Maybe not because the gland wasn't working, but because nothing was telling it to work. The pituitary wasn't regulating it the right way because of what the adrenals were doing. And your TPO popped. You have autoimmune disease now. You have Hashimoto's disease. which I don't think you knew before that either, right?
No.
So, when we look at what the thyroid's responsible for in a nutshell is regulating metabolic function of all your cells, right? It regulates mitochondrial function. And that's one term that everybody, even if they're not in the medical field, always remembers back to like 7th grade high school biology when you're learning about the organelles, the mini organs of the cell. It's the powerhouse of the cell, right?
Right.
Well, what that really means is that's where all your aerobic metabolism takes place, right?
Yep.
So that's where the Krebs cycle is. That's where we oxidize, or that's where we metabolize fat in our oxidative pathways for energy production. That's where we aerobically break down glucose. So if the thyroid doesn't work to a certain extent, every cell metabolically is dysfunctional, right?
Right.
So that in and of itself is going to cause your hair to be thin and brittle and slow length because the hair follicles, just like every other cell metabolically, are going to be dysfunctional. So now all of a sudden we're dealing with hair loss that we already know is very much a multifactorial problem, right? We have this adrenal dysfunction that is shortening the growth phase of hair follicles, coupled with thyroid that's creating metabolic dysfunction of all your cells, which also makes the hair of lesser quality. Like, well, yeah, it's going to shed, it's going to break, it's going to be brittle, it's going to be dry. I mean, it's those two endocrine factors in themselves. One of those independent from the other would cause your hair to thin and fall out. You put those two together, and it's exponential in how severe it makes that case, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
So we did some testing, and then you started me on a protocol.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. One of the other things we also looked at is with the Dutch is we looked at hormone metabolism.
Yep.
Right. So at the point, I think you're on a little bit of testosterone, right?
Yes.
In your blood values of testosterone and maybe a little DHEA, right?
Yes.
Yep. In your blood values of testosterone looked really good.
Yeah. And to be clear for people, like, women need testosterone.
Oh, yeah.
I get told all the time, like, oh, you're on steroids.
Yeah.
Okay. No, women need testosterone. So that's just something to say here. And also, Joe, you can go into this maybe for just like a second, but once we hit a certain age, because of our environmental factors, all the chemicals that we're involved in now more than ever, I think it's very important that everyone gets a full hormone blood panel done, because a lot of people need to be on bioidentical hormones these days.
Oh, for sure. And what I would say, and again, to clarify, people throw the term steroid around a lot. A steroid is just a type of hormone.
Yeah.
We have it's a hormone made out of cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
Receptor sites are at the nucleus of the cell. You have all sorts of steroid hormones that aren't testosterone. An anabolic steroid is just a steroid hormone that builds, right?
Yeah.
So people hear that term, is testosterone an anabolic steroid? Yes, it's a steroid hormone that has anabolic properties. There's a bunch of other ones that are too, right? There's catabolic steroid hormones, and they're things our body makes. Women need them, right? Just like men need them. We just need the right amount. And there's a big difference between saying I'm taking bioidentical testosterone replacement versus like I'm running Tren and Anavar. You know what I mean?
Right.
My wife takes testosterone. You're good friends with my wife. She's a very effeminate, beautiful woman. She's not masculine looking, and she takes testosterone. It's been great for her, right? It's all about the right things. But that's one of the other things we looked at from a hormone assessment is there was a multifactorial issue there. Your testosterone and your DHEA on blood looked really good, okay? And for anybody that doesn't know DHEA is an adrenal hormone as well, okay? But it's kind of a wild card hormone because it turns into a lot of different things. Some of it sulfates, which is just a chemical process, or it turns into a hormone that's called androstenedione. Yeah. Androstenedione is a sex hormone precursor that can turn into mineral corticoids like androsterone, but it also can turn into testosterone and estrogen, right? And when the adrenals get wonky, that'll get off too. And your blood levels of DHEA and testosterone on what you're taking look good. But on the Dutch test, what we saw is downstream with all of your androgenic hormones, like androstenedione and testosterone, you had a really active what's called 5-alpha reductase enzyme. And the 5-alpha reductase enzyme is what creates your more androgenic molecules, like dihydrotestosterone. And androsterone or aldosterone that can be very good and cellularly very active and really anabolic and great metabolites. They're going to be the ones that are hard on your hair. And that's a case where blood levels look great, but maybe we're like, hey, we need to be more conservative because of the downstream metabolism of these hormones, right?
Right.
And then because of your adrenals, you had basically a progesterone and estrogen profile that looked very comparable to that of somebody who had female athlete triad, right?
Yeah.
Which female athlete triad is generally induced in young women with overtraining, where menses will stop and you'll get suppression of the HPO axis, and then there's a propensity for bone density loss and malnutrition and amenorrhea and things. And yes, you train and you exercise a lot, but part of that was just you were just constantly hammered on with stress.
Yeah.
Right. And we've talked about it before. Your body knows what stress is, but it doesn't necessarily differentiate types or the cause of stress and change response accordingly. It's just stress is stress is stress.
Yeah.
So, we see a big multifactorial issue. There's the thyroid. There's the autoimmune piece, which, to be clear, if you have an autoimmune disease, the likelihood of having multiple autoimmune diseases is very higher. It's just you figure them out as we check them. So there's this immune dysregulation and inflammatory response, right?
Yeah.
Insufficient thyroid hormone values, chronically high levels of cortisol, which are blunting, right, growth phase, more androgenic sex hormone metabolism of testosterone, and then a complete lack of progesterone and estrogen, right? So it's just like a lot of things going on simultaneously.
Yeah.
Right?
It was a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I was like, pretty much, let's just get my hair back.
Yeah. Let's get it back.
I was like, I don't really care. Like, I hear you, but I need to get my hair back. So what are we going to do? And so that's when we started the treatment protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, like, I was very desperate to get my hair back, and I think that a lot of people don't understand like what stress can really do to you.
Oh, it absolutely kills you.
It will kill you. And, people always say like, do you remember back to the moment that this happened? And I always do. I was sitting at my desk upstairs and I was so stressed out of my brains that my head went fuzzy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and that was it. And the next thing I know, like all this stuff started to occur. Mm-hmm. Right. But, so, I started doing basically supplements and the adrenal protocol. Mm-hmm. And I think at one time before I came to the clinic, I actually went to a dermatologist mm-hmm. and was like, hey, listen, my hair's falling out. Like, can you tell me if why? Can you look at it? Can you tell me if it will ever grow back? And let me tell you about that experience. It pissed me off because I went in there and she looks, oh yeah, you know what? A piece just came out right now. Oh yeah, you got hair loss. Oh, we're going to stick you on.
You're like, no shit.
Yeah. I'm like, I know. Right. And then she's like looking at it. Yeah. She's like, we're going to stick you on, I believe it was
spironolactone.
Yes.
Which drops androsterone and aldosterone. Yep.
Okay.
And it has a diuretic effect, but.
Well, so what I did is I was like, okay. And I was like, but isn't that going to mess with my hormones?
No.
Right?
Yep.
She's like, well, a little bit, not that much. And I'm like, okay. So she prescribed, and then I took the bottle, after I picked it up, and I started doing my own research on it. I was like, I'm not taking this.
Yeah.
I'm like, lady, I already feel like shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so then you have to make a decision right there. It's like, am I going to take this pill, right, that might stop the rest of my hair from coming out, but in return destroy my hormones, and I'm going to feel like shit. Really, I already feel like shit.
Well, and I would argue too, given that your problem was multifactorial, it probably would have been band-aiding a knife wound.
Right.
Right.
So just covering it up.
Probably wouldn't. Well, and I don't even know that it would have fixed it.
And she didn't even answer my question. I said, is there any chance that hair that just came out, would it ever grow back?
Yeah.
That's what I really want you to look at, lady. I want you to tell me that there's a chance. You're looking deep down into this right here, and you're telling me it's going to come back.
Yeah.
But she couldn't give me an answer.
Yeah. And it's unfortunately, you run into a lot of traditional hair restoration. It's, your minoxidils and your spironolactones, or finasteride and Propecia and things like that, which again, how those drugs work is they inhibit the 5-alpha reductase enzyme that makes your more androgenic molecules. But the standard protocol for hair loss is to use those at a completely suppressive dose, mm-hmm. right? So they take your DHT to nothing. So, and that can be a problem for men or women, because although you don't want too much, it's your most metabolically active form of testosterone. It's the most anabolic. It's the most neurochemically active. So you hear there's a lot with guys that have hair loss. They're like, oh yeah, I took finasteride. And it's like, well, my hair is cool now, but my penis doesn't work
Yeah.
because I have no DHT. I've dropped my DHT down to undetectable levels. And it's like,
Right.
superficially like, I could get girls now, but I can't do anything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's, it always feels like in a lot of traditional hair loss cases, a lot of the traditional intervention is it's like, we can fix this. What are you willing to sacrifice to get your hair back?
Yeah. And I'm really big on medications. Like,
Yeah.
what are the side effects? Like, what could happen? Just because I work really hard to be healthy.
Yeah.
I work hard to live a quality life. That's what I work hard towards. So I had to, at that moment, be like, I'm not willing to do that, period.
Yeah.
And I don't care if I do go bald. So, anyways, back to my protocol.
Yeah.
I started doing what the recommendations were.
Yep.
And so, it's crazy because I was also doing that with a red light laser cap. I ended up buying this really cool red light laser cap, which is awesome. I also ended up, I was going to this place for laser hair removal. What's so frustrating is that my hair on my body will grow, but I can't get it to grow on my head. I'm like, wait, what? But I will say this, also another thing is because Hashimoto's, my eyebrows, I didn't notice before,
Lateral
but
third thinning on you.
Yeah, they were thinning on me coming out. And, you never really noticed that until it's like, yeah, that is happening. But I'll say this, I'm like, thank you, Jesus, that my eyelashes weren't falling out.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, you know what? That's fine. Take my eyebrows. I'll get those colored on. Take my hair. I'll wear wigs. But before that, I was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So when I started the protocol of the supplements and, testosterone again and doing all these things, I did notice okay, I was really focused on the hair falling out still because it does. But more so what was, I think, important is I could touch my hair again and it not feel brittle. It was soft again.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's where it is. Because you could look at it and be like, dang, girl, it looks like a peanut brittle.
It looked like what was the old 80s hair things where you just stick your head in that big hair thing that they drop on your head and it cooks it for an hour?
It was like that bad. And so, I got really, I started doing this laser treatment, serums, special shampoos, conditioners, a GHKCU, copper peptide.
Which is great because that increases follicular hair growth phase. GHKCU is awesome as far as increasing follicular growth phases for hair follicles. And then did you do the microneedling with the exosome and stem cell product?
I didn't do that. No, I haven't done that yet because, I watched, Buzz and I went to Pensacola. Yeah. And there was this Dr. DeArmond.
Yeah. Dr. DeArmond, yeah.
Okay. So he did Evil Knievel and he did the Prince and he's done all these famous people's hair and he has passed away now. But he actually, when we went to Pensacola for him to do our hair and Buzz went first.
Yeah.
And
Dr. DeArmond did mine when he was doing a training up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that guy, I was watching Buzz and the whole time I could hear it. It was crunchy,
Going through the collagen elastin
yes,
the scalp. Yeah.
Crunchy. And I was like, and then they said, you guys won't be able to go to dinner tonight because he's going to have to lay flat. I was like, oh, count me out. Yeah. I was like, dude, I'm going to dinner. I was like, I'm not getting that done then. Because you know me, I love food. So I was like, yeah, I'm not getting it done. I'm going to dinner. And Buzz, you can come or not. I think you're going to, Buzz is like this the whole time. But yeah, it's just I heard the crunchy noises. I'm like, oh my God. And then, the needle is that long.
Well, what's so funny too is when you have it done, you're numbed for it. So you don't really feel
so
it.
that was the numbing. And then,
but the crunching thing with the microdermablation, when it's on your own head, you hear it, but it sounds like it's coming from inside your skull. It's a very weird sensation. It doesn't hurt, but this is
weird.
This is unique. It's a weird, it's a weird phenomenon.
So I was like, nah, I'm good. And then ever since that experience, it kind of traumatized me. And I haven't, because, I have to say what I love the most is that I do have these abilities to do, PRP, exosomes, stem cells, We have Charlie that's like, I'll make you something really cool.
Yeah.
So like we have the ability to do those things, but it's like that hearing that and seeing Buzz, I'm like, oh my God, I'm traumatized, right? I'm
Yeah.
like, nah. And then, it's like my hair is soft. Like I'll take the little wins. Would I love to have, my hair back like it was? Of course I would. Would I
Yeah.
like to have my, like maybe go in public without a wig? Sure. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm just blessed that my hair does grow. It
Mhm.
is growing.
Yeah.
It's just I see a little bit of peach fuzz now in the receiving hairline,
Yep.
which is takes a long time if you think about it for those parts to grow, because the part back here where I was actually like bald, it's coming in more, which
Yeah.
I find to be weird. Like, I've struggled with that. Like, I look at it all the time. Like, why can't the hair where my receiving hairline is grow back faster? So I guess that's a question people might have is like, some people, when they lose their hair, they're like, oh, my hair, it fell out, but it's growing back quickly.
Yeah.
And then, I'm over here just like, dude, this hair has been like this small for 3 months. I've been watching it.
Well, I guess that would probably what would cause the changes in that if I were, and again, if you have a simple hair loss case, what are the things that are like easy fixes? Like if you're anemic, that's going to be a problem. So if it's a simple, like, hey, take a little or B7 deficiency with biotin.
Yeah.
Like if your problems, you need a little biotin and iron, and it's not some advanced pathology that's causing it. That's probably an easy fix.
Right.
In your case, it's it was pretty advanced HPA axis dysfunction, autoimmune disease, thyroid disease. We didn't even mention the dysbiosis in the gut that you're working on, right?
Yeah.
Or were working on, which has since been corrected. But those are more advanced long-term endocrine issues that can take 6 to 9 months themselves to stabilize. And then it's like you stabilize it, then the reparative process for hair growth starts happening.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like I had to fix the problem and then it started resolving. So, which is frustrating because it makes it
Takes
take
a long time.
Yeah.
And so I will say that, wow, I think that the hair really, and also I will say this, my hair fell out in I'll say, I don't know how, like 2 cycles. Like I feel like my hair fell out chunks and clumps like really bad. And then for a hot second, there was like, I was so excited in the shower where I'm like, okay, this is like little, like I can't believe this. And I thought, oh my God, it's turning around. And then all of a sudden, like maybe 2 months later, it was like chunks again. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, what are we doing? And I'm just like, you know what? I finally was just like, I'm going to keep doing what I do
Yeah.
and wear my wigs because now I'm really into that and I like it. But the biggest win of all, I think, is like, I know that I'm still going to have shedding and hair loss, but it's like my hair feels healthy, soft, and that's a
Seeing
win.
baby hairs come in. It's
Yeah, I see
slowing
the baby
down,
hairs.
it's follicle phase. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a lot quicker to break stuff than it is to fix it. But again, I don't even know that because again, I sometimes I feel like with some of these processes, especially with the adrenal dysfunction, I see it's kind of a slow burn until it's not.
Yeah.
It's kind of like filling up a bucket, right? I feel with people where it's like you're filling it up, it's getting full, it's getting full, it's getting full, it's getting full, and then once it gets full, it feels like it's just spilling out so fast.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of people have that with HPA axis dysfunction issues, adrenal related issues. Like they sustain stress for 3, 4, 5 years ongoing and they make themselves deal with it. And they're aware of their stress. And a lot of people, I used to be somebody that used to pride myself on like, yeah, I'm under stress, but I operate good under stress.
Yeah.
And you're probably the same way.
I was so like that.
The same way.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like you wear it like like just this completely dumbass badge of honor where you're like,
right.
Look at how much I'll keep going even though I feel terrible.
Yeah.
And then I felt like even for me, because I had some issues with in the past, and actually my hit in the wall came like 6 to 12 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Where mine wasn't the hair loss issue, but it was like stress for years and years and years and years, and all of a sudden like I'm gaining weight, my blood pressure's out of control, and my sleep's terrible and things like that. And I was like, but for me it was it's like I was aware of these things, I was aware of the influence of stress, but I kept dealing with it until one day I just couldn't anymore.
Yeah.
And then it was like it was like a car wreck.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like maybe that's how the hair loss was for you. Like you weren't lacking for awareness that you were under constant stress,
No, I knew.
but you just like, you ignore it, you deal with it,
Yeah.
you deal with it, you deal with it. And then eventually your body reaches a point like, all right, I'm going to get your attention, make it so you can't deal with this anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
So
it
it's like,
did. It
yeah.
got my attention. And, that's when I was like, okay, and then we have all these other things we figured out. And I was like, okay, I got to resign. I can't for my job. And that was my identity too. And I was like, I can't do it because I'm going to end up dead,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
or end up with more autoimmune issues.
Right.
So I was like, it got to go. So yeah, so for me now in my current state, it's like, what do? I still do the red light laser cap. I'm still taking supplements. I still do my bioidentical hormones. I wear wigs to feel confident. I wear them all the time. People are like, you wear those to the gym? Yeah. I wear them every day of my life, like, because they make me feel good.
Yeah, like I didn't buy them to keep it in the closet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And, like, I find that's what helps me. And, there are days where I look in the mirror and I'm like, God, like, I'm feeling it, I'm touching it, I'm looking at it. I start obsessing over the hair loss. And I'm like, stop it. You have
Yeah.
like 300 wigs, girl. So just who cares?
Well, and you still have a head of hair under there.
I do have
just
hair.
It's just not as
Thick.
full and thick as you want it to
Right.
be. Yeah. So if anybody wondering, like, you're not bald.
No, I'm not bald.
Right. You got a head of hair.
I do have hair. It's
Yeah.
just not, you're used to what it was.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be that again, I don't think, for me. Or maybe it will, but it's going to take time.
Or maybe just not right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're experiencing hair loss, I have to say, like, just don't chop it up to be like, oh, it's my hair is falling out or I'm shedding. It's more than that. There's more to it.
Yep.
And there really might be an underlying, not might be, there is an underlying issue, right?
Yes.
It could be your adrenals. It could be your hormones. It could be gut issues. It could be something.
Be your thyroid. It could
Thyroid.
be, yeah.
Something. So if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, my hair has been falling out, which, by the way, we didn't touch on this. I'm sorry. I keep my
Coming
mind's
back for
everywhere. COVID.
Yeah.
Like hair loss from COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're still going through that, which people are,
Mm-hmm.
people are
Seeing
still
a lot
struggling.
of long COVID cases. We're seeing a lot of post-vaccine cases.
Yes. Sorry, I was like I was about ready to end our show, but I'm like, my gosh, no, people are struggling still from COVID and the vaccine and like all these things, and their hair is falling out still.
Yeah.
So if that is you, I'm telling you, please, please, please reach out to us because we can help you. I mean, it's not going to go away on its own, right?
No, and it's funny. One of the most annoying things about hair loss is, what do people do when they start seeing hair loss? Either they assume there's an iron deficiency and they go take iron, which if you take more iron and you don't need iron, it is going to back you up and you're not going to be able to go to the bathroom. Or they go take biotin because biotin deficiency can contribute to hair loss. The problem is when you start taking a bunch of biotin, it can artificially drop TSH and make things on your thyroid look normal that aren't normal. So it can skew your thyroid labs.
Wow.
So it's one of those things.
And people do that.
For sure.
They go on, they buy all this biotin and they're like, let me just take that.
Well, and then, so like, let's say you have hair loss and you start taking biotin and you go to your primary care for hair loss and say, hey, will you check my thyroid? They're going to check like a TSH. They're probably not going to pull a full panel.
Right.
And your TSH, it may be fine. It may show up fine because it's being suppressed. The biotin's causing misregulation that are suppressing TSH and making it look normal. So it's really a catch-22 with that, where it's like, I would almost say if you start having it, you need to go worked up before you start doing anything.
Yeah, seriously.
Right, which is really annoying.
It is.
It just is what it is.
So annoying. All right, so if you are experiencing hair loss, okay, believe me, it's something deeper than what you're thinking. Something might be out of balance. You're not crazy. You're not alone. You're not out of options. Trust me, we have answers for you. Anyways, thanks for listening. And don't forget to follow and share this episode and keep tuning in. Also, if you want to hear anything, if you're interested in a topic, just drop it in the comments or reach out to us. We'd love to talk about whatever you're going through or anything that you want to hear. Anyways, stop feeling like shit. Until next time.
And keep your hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
All right, cool.